Now that Supergirl's first season is over, it's time to look back at what made it work and where it could improve. I picked out 6 moments that stood out and where I could make a comparison with the comics to see where they remained faithful or where they deviated from the comics. Let's have a look. The first and probably most controversial one is Superman. Before the show aired, people had their doubts about a Supergirl show without Superman because the two are so linked to each other. Still, implementing Superman into the show was a brave choice, but even after the first season I'm still not sure how I feel about it. On the one hand, it's cool they didn't ignore the Man of Steel, but the way they put him into the show is haphazard at times. Kara having a chat session with Clark doesn't really make me feel like Superman is a part of the show. The scenes where he's physically on the show but doesn't show his face makes for the best Superman scenes to me. The show might fear that a bigger presence of Superman could overcloud Supergirl, but I feel like there must be better ways to add him to the show. In an ideal world, you would have Henry Cavill hop by for a cameo. Hey, let's be real, that's not gonna happen. I'm really curious as to how the CW will handle Superman into Supergirl's second season. Probably the biggest moment of the season was Hank Henshaw revealing he is the Martian Manhunter, John Jones. And the origin story of John Jones, which means Light of the Light, was a bit different in the comics than on the show. John Jones had a twin brother, Malefic, which means darkness in the heart. His brother tried to commit genocide using a virus which would ultimately lead to John's wife and daughter dying in front of his eyes. Some scientists eventually got him to Earth, where he took up the mantle of the superhero, the Martian Manhunter. In the show, however, they made the White Martians responsible for the genocide. In the comics, the Green and White Martians were part of the same race known as the Burning. This race used fire to reproduce asexually and were belligerent to all. The Guardian of the Universe genetically split the Martian race into 2 distinct species, white and green, preventing the asexual reproduction. They also gave these 2 new races an instinctive fear of fire to prevent either group from ever accessing their full potential. Besides green and white, there were also yellow Martians with a rather minor history in the comics, but you can see there's a lot of potential to build a season around John Jones and Mars. I never expected them to dive in such a big Justice League character, but I'm really glad they did. John Jones' story as the Last Martian is such an interesting character. His design is spot on, just like the White Martians, and I hope they delve deeper in that character and his history in Season 2. Next are the comic villains. With this I'm talking about the bigger villains and not the smaller Fort Ross prisoners we got in the beginning of the season. I'm not going to go too deep into this because there are so much interesting comic villains that I feel like they warrant a separate video. You had the likes of Leslie Willis, aka Livewire, Red Tornado and Theo Morrow, Toyman, Bizarro, Silver Banshee, Indigo, so a lot of comic villains during season 1. In general, for the most part, I feel like they did the villains justice, except for Red Tornado, who I feel like got an awful design. Next are the Kryptonians. I'm glad they made the Kryptonians the big bads of season 1. It would have been easy to mention Krypton and Supergirl's origin story in the first couple of episodes and then tossed aside. By making Astra and Nal the big bad, they had enough excuses to look back at Kara on Krypton and the Kryptonian civilization. They even had an episode that took place almost entirely on Krypton with episode 13. Only criticism is Nan, who I feel like they could have given some more backstory like they gave Astra. But they were still a satisfying main villain couple, with Astra redeeming herself towards the end. Now in the comic there was not an Astra, but there was an Allura. Allura Inze lived in Argo City on Krypton. She was the wife of the scientist Zor-El and the mother of Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl. So far, so faithful to the comic, right? After being saved by Superman when he defeated Brainiac and returned the bottle city of Kandor and renamed it New Krypton, Allura believed that Earthlings were just a weaker, lesser version of Kryptonians. As you can see, this second part sounds more like Astra. It seems like the show split the comic character of Allura into two characters, Allura and Astra, for the show. As for Nam, he was pretty faithfully adapted to the comics. The distinguished scientist Nam studies atmospheric anomalies. Along with his best student, Jor-El, Nam discovered that Krypton's sun had become unstable and that Krypton would be destroyed. They addressed their concern to the Kryptonian Science Council, but they were met with scorn and derision. Unlike Jor-El, Nam began speaking publicly to anyone who would listen, spreading the word that Krypton was doomed. It would get him a one-way trip to the Phantom Zone. Over the entire season I enjoyed the Krypton-centric overarching story, but I wouldn't mind if for next season they put the Kryptonians more on the back burner in favor of a more Martian-centric story. Last but one is Maxwell Lords. Of course, there was no way that you could have Lex Luthor on the show, but you still need a Luthor-like character. At first I thought Alex, Karek's sister, would grow into a Lex Luthor-like character, which still could happen. But with Maxwell Lord they found what they needed. A character you love to hate. And the actor did a really great job at portraying the character. In the comics, Maxwell Lord is quite a big character. He is a wealthy businessman and entrepreneur responsible for organizing the Justice League International. Taking an interest in their management, he secured the United Nations sponsorship for the League and acted as their leader for several years. During Invasion, he discovered he was a metahuman with powerful mind control abilities. In the events leading to Crisis on Infinite Earth, he is known for killing Blue Beetle by shooting him in the head, and also by being killed by Wonder Woman during Infinite Crisis. It seems like for now we're getting a Maxwell Lord light version in comparison with Maxwell Lord from the comics. I'm curious what they will do with him in the future. Last but not least is the crossover with The Flash. The thing I probably love the most about the DC comic TV shows is the fact that they're all connected. We were teased for a long time with the possibility of a Supergirl Flash crossover, and episode 18 finally gives us what we want. It was a fun episode. It was a very light-hearted episode where Barry and Kara team up to take on Livewire and Silver Banshee. The light-hearted tone of the episode allowed the Flash to fit quite nicely into Supergirl's world. And although it was an easy way to go the different Earths explanation route for the crossover, it was good enough for me. Considering Supergirl Season 2 is heading to the CW, I'm sure we can look forward to more crossovers in the future. We're one step closer to a TV version of the Justice League. In general, I think Supergirl can be happy with her first season, considering she aired on a network when Flash never really felt like home. CBS is known for their CSI family easy format case of the week shows, and them wanting Superman always felt more like wanting a piece of the comic book pie that makes so much money these days. Now that Supergirl is heading to the CW for its second season, it feels to me she is where she belongs together with her sibling shows like Arrow and The Flash. I am however curious if every actor on the show will make the move to the CW and how the show will look and feel, considering it will be filmed in Vancouver now. Either way, I have high hopes for Season 2, and I'm pretty sure they will raise the bar for Supergirl. Thanks for watching, and I will see you for the next review.